Welcome to the Empowered Mind podcast with Joelle and Natalie Rivera. We are on a never-ending quest to master the power of our mind, develop a growth mindset, and explore the leading edge of positive psychology and human potential so we can take radical personal responsibility for creating our destinies and reaching our potential. So let me ask you, what are you really capable of being in control of?
Because a lot of people think that they need to either control everything or they think that they don't have control of anything in their life, that life is just happening to them. And in psychology, they have a term called locus of control. And really what that means is that there are certain things that you can control, and it's about your perspective of what you can and cannot control. Again, you might be that person that thinks that I can control everything in my life. I have the power, the decision making. If something happens, I can shift it. I can create my reality.
But there's a negative to that belief system, and that's that you feel responsible for everything. Everything that goes wrong is your fault. Or you feel like you should be able to control everything, and so you actually literally try to go around controlling people, controlling situations, and you're not able to do that because you just believe that you should be able to. So it could be positive because you might be very confident, but it can also be very frustrating, and you can drive people crazy by trying to be super controlling. And really all it comes down to is a belief that you think that you're in control or should be in control of everything.
Yeah. And it can be frustrating for you because every time something doesn't go to the way that you're expecting it to, obviously you're going to get frustrated instead of making the best out of it and really learning from it. The other aspect of locus of control is those people that think that they don't have any control of anything. You probably met some people like this. You might be like this yourself, where you just think that the external world dictates your reality. Meaning, if you fail a test, it's because your teacher sucks. If something happens in your life, it's because your partner, your boss, anything. So you don't really ever make the decision to really push forward on your dreams and hopes because you're expecting things just to fall in your lap because you're expecting life to be happening to you.
And that's really what it comes down to. When bad things happen, you feel like a victim of it. So if you tend to have this external locus of control, meaning the external world controls you, you probably have a victim mentality. You probably get really frustrated when things don't go your way. You feel like somebody has a vendetta against you or the world is out to get you because you just feel so out of control, like there's nothing you can do. And the problem with that is there actually is a lot that you can control in life. And because of your belief that you just have no control, you don't take responsibility for the things that are within your power. And so you don't own your power.
So really the best place to be is recognizing that you can't control everything and that your outside does have an influence on you, but that you do have control and you can take responsibility for aspects of your life because there are certain things that you can and cannot control, which is something that we kind of want to go into.
And so really what it comes down to is that the truth is that there's 3 different levels of control or influence. And the first level is more obvious, which is things you literally have direct control over. And ultimately, all of the things that fall into that category are the things closest to you. So if you imagine a circle around you, the closest circle around you is what you have control over, which is primarily your thoughts, your emotions, your behaviors, your actions, and in some cases, something in your immediate environment. So that's like the closest circle to you is where you actually have direct control.
So for example, if you're feeling mad, that's something in your control. You know, and you might say, well, no, because that person made me mad, but actually you are in control of your emotions. You're in control of the way that you perceive someone's actions, their words, or whatever it is. You're in control of deciding to change your state. So you can walk away from the situation. You can think of furry bunnies and get all happy. You can put a YouTube video that changes your state. You can do some exercise. You can choose to view the situation differently. Maybe they're just having a bad day. So those are the things that you're directly in control of. You're in control of your actions, whether you set your alarm for 7 o'clock and wake up a little bit earlier so you can exercise. You're in control of the goals that you want to take in your life. You're in control of possibly setting boundaries in your life and being able to tell people, no, I'm not ready, or I don't want to do that right now because I have priorities and different things that I want to focus on.
And so again, that's anything close to you. Basically, if you can touch it, it can be within your control. But then there's another circle that's a little bit further out. And these are things that you can influence. And there are a lot of different things that you can influence. But for instance, using that same example, if there's someone who, quote, made you mad, and you're probably mad because they're not acting the way you want them to. Again, you can't control them, but you can control yourself. However, there's a gray area. You can influence them. So the way that you choose to talk to them might influence them. You could also lead by example. And so you might not have direct control over another person, but you certainly can influence a situation. You can influence another person, but you cannot control them.
I'll give you a perfect example. If you had someone in your life that they just come into the room, they're super excited, they're talking to you, and you're like, wow. It's like you leave there and you feel excited. You feel happy. At the other end, have you ever had anyone that's just like and they come there and they talk to you and then you're feeling all depressed and all sad afterwards? That person or you are influencing other people. That person's influencing you to be happy or sad, or maybe you're influencing them. Doesn't mean that you have to accept their emotional state. It's the reality that it does have influence. So you can't influence someone specifically to behave a way, directly control it, but you can influence it by your own behaviors, by your own actions and things like that. But it's coming to the acceptance that even if you say the right thing, even if you do the right thing, even if you ask someone, it doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to control or change them. It just means that you have the power to influence them. So it's this important aspect to keep in mind.
Well, and it's really about, again, taking that personal responsibility. You might not be able to control another person or a situation, but you can control your reaction and how you act within it. And it's not just people that you can influence. You can influence situations. So say, for instance, there's something going on in your community, whether it's small scale like your neighborhood, or if it's large scale like your nation, that there might be things that are happening that you really feel passionate about, that you believe are wrong, that you wish would change. The truth is that you can influence those things. You might not be able to control them or stop them, but they're also not completely out of your control. You can participate in your local economy by choosing what you buy. Like you could be buying local instead of buying stuff made in China. If you're wanting to influence politics, you can vote, you can run for office. There are things you can do that are within the circle of influence where you might not be able to control the outcome, but it's also not completely out of your control.
Just at a basic level, you want to inspire people, you want to make a difference, you have direct control whether you jump on a Facebook video every day and say something inspirational. And that might influence other people to really change their lives, to make better decisions and stuff like that. But whether they do or not, you can't change them. And we work with a lot of coaches. We work with a lot of practitioners. And one of the things that we see that sometimes that they get frustrated because they want to make an impact on someone's life, but the other person is not actually taking the steps. So they think there's something wrong with them. But it's recognizing, again, that you can give someone the seeds of change doesn't mean that they're necessarily going to take it. So they have to be open and ready to really make the change themselves.
And so then the third level, this is the ring that's the farthest away from you. Now, these are things that you just can't control. You can't influence them, at least not like in your lifetime, and you definitely can't control them. And so ultimately, if you see something on the news of some person that did something on the other side of the world, it's obvious to you that there is nothing you can do to control that person. So there are things that are obvious that you can't control. Just like if you wanted to move a mountain, although there's a lot of talk about having the faith of a mustard seed and moving a mountain, the truth is that if you actually physically wanted to go move a mountain, at least from what we understand on Earth today, you can't do that. It's not possible. And so, but there also are other things in our immediate environment that you're just never going to be able to control. There are certain things like that you have to do. You have to have a place that you live and you have to be able to pay for it. You have to have a job. Those things you can't control, but you can certainly control how you proceed with those things.
Yeah. For example, your company, you might work for an organization that they have a corporate headquarters. You might be able to have influence within your organization there, but you might not be able to control what the CEO and their decision making and what they decide to do and how it impacts your organization. You might not be able to control a natural disaster that happens somewhere. And the reason this is important because a lot of people might see something that they can't control. It's outside of the sphere of influence and they wreck their brain over it. They can't sleep at night. They stress about it all the time because they feel like, oh, look at this, it's happening, it's so tragic. And I'm not saying that if there's some way that you can help, you can contribute, you can influence, but you might not be able to have any control over the situation. And beating yourself up for it, pretending like you actually can't control or influence it where you can't, then is recognizing, just like you can't have any control on somebody's behavior. You can try to influence it, but you might not have any control whatsoever what they do or what their parents do or what their neighbors do or the way the belief system. Some people, for example, if you look at someone that's their heart is full of hate and they're doing bad things, they're outside of your influence. There's nothing you could do, and there's no reason why you should go down that rabbit hole and let that suck you in and let that impact your life, to really not taking away from what you can control that can empower you and help you reach your goals.
And so really what it comes down to, with the things that are outside of your control, whether it's a hateful person or a natural disaster or some other reality that you can't touch, when you're facing those experiences or those realities, you have a choice how you react to it. And so your reaction and how you feel about it comes back into the internal circle where you do have control. So you want to look at the situation and ask yourself, is there legitimately anything that I can do about it? And if the answer is no, then you want to make peace with it. Now, if the answer is, I might be able to influence something related to this, I might be able to influence one person that I know versus this other person I can't touch. I might be able to make a difference by contributing to help people who went through a natural disaster, even though I can't stop the disaster from coming. So you want to look for what is within your control, whether it's direct control or something that you might just be able to influence. And so every time we talk about this topic, it makes me think about my grandmother, who in the bathroom had up on her wall the Serenity Prayer. And so I read it a lot growing up, going to her house. And it's so funny because psychology teaches exactly what this prayer says. And that is, God grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and most importantly, the wisdom to know the difference. And that's really what this topic is all about, is that whether your instinct is to feel like you want to try to control everything, or your instinct is to feel like you have no control over anything, we challenge you to look for that gray area and to ask yourself in any situation, is there anything I can do about this, yes or no? And if there's something that you can do about it, take personal responsibility for doing what you can without putting yourself in a position of feeling like you should be able to control it. Because in most cases, you can't control it. You can only control you.
So let me finish off by asking you, are you ready to take control of the things that you can't control and release the things that you can't?
Thank you, fellow Freedom Junkies, for listening. If you haven't already, be sure to subscribe. And if you want to help us grow, please rate and share this podcast. You can also become a member of Freedom Nation. Visit freedomorbustpodcast.com and sign up to receive access to exclusive content and take the 21-day happiness challenge. As you know, we believe that entrepreneurship is the ultimate form of empowerment, which is why we created the Side Hustle Business Startup course for anyone looking to create their own income and take back their power. We offer an exclusive discount for our podcast listeners. Find out more at freedomorbustpodcast.com.